fellows, daddy of the industry. We are so excited to have you on the platform this morning. And we send greetings to everybody who are joining us across the globe, because this is not Nigeria-based alone. Before we go forward, we just want to share the ground rules, the housekeeping of this meeting. We will want everybody to keep their phone on silent so that we limit distraction. Few people will use their laptop, and we need to adapt and follow up with the global policy of social media. We are going to be well groomed in terms of using the time appropriately, and you can quickly prepare your coffee by your side so that the 2 hours can be well utilized. Take note of the direction to your restroom in case you are pressed. In case there is any fire incident, please identify the direction to your door now. We enjoy everybody to take as much as possible all the notes. If you have any question, there is a small button on the chat room where you can raise up your hand and you'll be easily identified. Please, let's stay awake and let's enjoy this moment together. In terms of disclaimer, this is the first NAIP webinar program. It's focused to increase the awareness and consciousness of all stakeholders. Information is provided for educational use and all information for our needs. The intention is not to create fear or scare anybody about the revealing statistic. We are now adapting ourselves to live in the new world that COVID-19 is creating. One important thing here is that the panelists' view are individual, personal view, and not the organization that they are working in. This is very critical, and this is for us to take note. Thank you very much. Vinkat.
With this, now I go to introduction of our panelists. I'm sure each one of you are keen to know that our panelists and what is their views. While I would also present to you that we have got the best of the people who can understand about these dynamics of this particular situation. So let me take this opportunity in introducing our first panelist, Dr. Fidelis Ayebae. Dr. Fidelis Ayebae is the founder and chief executive officer of Fidson Healthcare Plc. The fact remains that Dr. Ayebae and his team has made considerable efforts to build the Nigerian pharmaceutical industry. There is no doubt in that. Dr. Fidelis Ayebae is undoubtedly one of the Nigeria's most prominent industrialists. He has over the years acquired many more academic and professional qualifications, including a PhD. He is a member of Nigerian Institute of Management and an associate member of the Chartered Institute of Administration. He is also a fellow of Institute of Corporate Affairs of Management. He is a member of the Manufacturer Association of Nigeria and Nigerian Chamber of Commerce, and the current chairman of the Pharmaceutical Manufacturers Group of Manufacturers of Nigeria. He is also the member of the Nigerian British Chamber of Commerce, the Nigerian American Chamber of Commerce. To say in one single word or one single line, Dr. Fidelis Ayebae is a great man of valor, a visionary leader like no other, a businessman par excellence, and a man with a heart of gold. We also have among us pharmacists. Thank you, Dr. Ayebae. We also have along with us is Pharm Oyelana. He is the managing director of GlaxoSmithKline Plc. Kunle has over 2 decades of industry experience, having started his career in hospital practice before moving on to community practice and then the pharmaceutical industry. He has held roles of increasing importance across the various arms of organization in pharmaceuticals, vaccines and consumer healthcare across Nigeria, in Anglophone and Francophone, West African, East African, South African, and in Asia. Kunle has a track record of success in the development of effective implementation of robust strategies with a keen focus on delivering sustainable growth in various situations. Pharm Oyelana values diversity and multicultural perspectives and has a strong focus and drive to deliver outstanding business performance while strengthening governance and developing talents. He holds a Bachelor of Pharmacy and an MBA from Obafemi Awolowo University in Nigeria. He is also an alumni of Strathmore Business School in Kenya and IMD Business School in Louisiana. Switzerland. Coming to our next panelist, Mr. Santosh Kumar is a well-known person in Nigeria. He is a biology graduate from prestigious Osmania University, India, and has went on to pursue his MBA from Lincoln University, California, USA. He has illustrious pharma experience of approximately 25 years in both Asia, Africa in pharma sales, marketing, SCM, and last mile distribution. Santosh worked with GSK India for approximately 10 years, where he started as medical rep and then moved on up the corporate ladder as area manager and brand manager. Santosh has been in Nigeria since 2005 with Worldwide Commercial Ventures, the leading pharma supply chain company and last mile distribution for many MNCs and indigenous pharmaceutical companies of repute. Worldwide is part of Imperial, which is the leading supply chain and the route to market organization operating across Africa, Europe in 30 countries and over 25,000 employees and approximately $4 billion USD annual global turnover. Santosh has joined Worldwide as regional manager and grew up the ranks of national sales manager, AGM, GM, VP, DMD, and now MD since 2017 of Worldwide Healthcare. He is an enthusiast of leadership, people development, strategy and its execution, passion about Nigerian pharma industry in specific and global pharma in general. Ladi.
Thank you so much, Venkat. Our next panelist is Dr. Solomon Agova. He is a pharmacist. He attended University of Benin, Federal University of Technology, Owerri, where he bagged the Bachelor of Pharmacy, MSc Pharmaceutical Chemistry, and MBA degree in 1995 and 2004, respectively. He also has a PhD in Operation Pharmaceutical Supply Management from the University of Johannesburg in South Africa. Currently, he serves as the MD CEO of Flux Logistics Ltd. Dr. Solomon served as non-executive director of CAP Nigeria Plc from May 2008 to July 2019. He presently sits on the board of Korea Plus Nigeria Ltd as a non-executive director. He's a member of Council for Supply Chain Management Professionals, a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Logistics and Transport Nigeria, fellow of the Chartered Institute of Supply Chain Management Ghana, and a fellow of Africa Center for Supply Chain Management. He currently facilitates courses in logistics and supply chain in Nigeria, Lagos Business School, the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, and Multi-Means Academy Africa Center for Supply Chain Management. We welcome to this morning webinar, Dr. Solomon.
Thank you.
Our next panelist is Dr. Lolu Ojo. He currently serves as the Managing Director of Merit Healthcare Ltd, Nigeria, Africa, with over 30 years of pharmaceutical industrial experience and knowledge. He has served in senior capacities at many organizations. He is a change agent with extensive experience of developing visions for organizations. In some quarters where I belong, we usually call him a mobile pharmacopoeia. No wonder he is the current chairman of PSN Research Statistics Liaison Committee, director of Program Nigeria Academy of Pharmacy, committee member of New Drug Distribution Channels Guideline, faculty member of West Africa Postgraduate College of Pharmacists, and chairman Estate Management Committee of Association of Industrial Pharmacists of Nigeria. Dr. Lolu Ojo is a fellow Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria, fellow Courier and Logistics Management Institution, fellow Nigeria Academy of Pharmacy, to mention a few. He is a prolific writer, and numerous published articles and publications are linked to him. Welcome to this webinar this morning, Dr. Lolu Ojo.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think the time has come, then we have to for the views of the panelists.
So we have the last but not the least, our daddy and the chief himself. He is a Nigerian pharmacist, Prince Julius Adewale Adelusi Adeluyi. He's a Nigerian pharmacist and a legal practitioner. He is the founder and chairman of Julie PLC, the first indigenous promoted company quoted on the Nigeria Stock Exchange. He was the first and remained the only pharmacist to have become the Federal Minister of Health and Social Services in Nigeria. He is the first group chairman of Odua Investment Conglomerate, an organization coordinating economic cultural legacy of the Yoruba nation. Julie, as is fondly called by his colleague, is a fellow and pioneer president of Nigeria Academy of Pharmacy, as well as the founding Secretary General of West Africa Postgraduate College of Pharmacists. He served as the Secretary and President of the Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria at different times, and as should be expected of the astute leader, his tenure was characterized by several innovations, one of which was the composition of the pharmacy item. He is fondly described as the mentor general of pharmacy profession in Nigeria. Join me this morning in welcome to this medal webinar of NAIP, my Lord Pharmaceutical, Prince Julius Adewale Adelusi Adeluyi. We welcome you this morning, sir.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Welcome.
God bless.
Welcome, bless your presence, sir.
So thank
We
you
take
very
the
much.
program forward by inviting the President of Association of Industrial Pharmacists, our able chairman, Aigbavboa, to take the welcome address, and we proceed for the program.
Good morning, everyone. For those in Nigeria, I'm sure for those outside Nigeria, it will be different times of the day. I thank our moderators for bringing me on. I would like for us to say a word of prayer as we start. Almighty and eternal God, we thank you for this opportunity to have this discussion that is going to move our industry forward. We ask you to direct all the deliberations we are having today so that it's going to help us to make progress. We ask you to bless all the businesses in Nigeria and outside Nigeria that are supporting our industry so that our citizenry will benefit immensely from what we do to the glory of your name through Christ our Lord. Amen. Thank you very much. I will start by introducing the Association of Industrial Pharmacists of Nigeria, especially for those who may not know what it is. The Association of Industrial Pharmacists of Nigeria is one of the 4 technical arms of the Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria. And this involves pharmacists who are engaged in manufacturing, quality assurance, regulatory affairs, sales and marketing, management, consultancy, journalism, and all of that you find in the industry. And we have in Nigeria over 250 corporate members, which include all the pharmaceutical companies that are into manufacturing, that are into importation and distribution. And that is why we have a very rich membership of both pharmacists and non-pharmacists in our programs. And so today we are happy to bring to you this webinar on the effects of the COVID pandemic on the Nigerian pharmaceutical industry. When in March of this year, we had our first bi-monthly meeting and we had the economic outlook for 2020. The presenter of that program, Mr. Fidelis Ayebae, who is the managing director of Chapters and Heights, told us that 2020 is going to be a very difficult year. And he painted the picture that all of us were feeling was going to be such a gloomy year. Little did we know that even his presentation was a wonderful outlook, because at the time we had just had our index case, and we hadn't had our index case in Nigeria, and not much was affecting us. Now, by the time the lockdown started and travel ban started, of course, it affected most of our companies. And then by early March, we were awoken to the fact that India, as a country that supplies almost 50% of our medicinal needs in Nigeria, have decided to restrict some of their medications that are being exported. And we have things like antibiotics, some vitamins, paracetamol, and analgesic. And Nigeria relies so much on India, and with the circumstance, we also found ourselves faced with a situation where we are going to have some shortages in medicine supply. And then the webinar, we want to look at how all of that has impacted on the Nigerian pharmaceutical industry and what key learnings we will take out of it, and also how to move forward. And give us how make the companies that form the NAIP, the bulk of NAIP, to be more prosperous in the post-COVID era. And so it will be good also for us to look at how to make supplies sustainable over the time. So at this point, we want to recognize one of our partners, Bloom Public Health, that has been helping us to strategize to see how we can come together and improve and ramp up manufacturing in Nigeria, especially by setting up a pharma park, which is one of the ways we think that we can improve manufacturing in Nigeria. We also want to thank the members and the executive of Nigerian Association of Pharmacists and Pharmaceutical Scientists in America, who are also giving us a lot of support. And in a special way, ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome the president of the Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria, Mazi Sam Ohuabunwa, who is our overall boss. I'm sure sometime as we are progressing, he's going to make his remarks. I also want to welcome specially my Lord Pharmaceutical, the president of the Nigerian Academy of Pharmacy, Prince Julius Adelusi Adelu. Thank you so much for all of you coming around. And I'm sure that the panelists we have, for whom we are eternally grateful that they have accepted to make this presentation, will do justice to this topic. And so at this time, ladies and gentlemen, I welcome everyone, and I want us to start with the webinar. Thank you.
Venkat, you are on mute. Venkat, you are on mute.
Yeah. Thank you, Santosh. Thank you, IG, for introducing everybody and also introducing our objective and the concerns what we have. We really appreciate that you have given a direction to this entire program. And we all know that how much efforts you have put forward to see that this program can come so that it can benefit all our citizenry and particularly people in our business. Thank you very much, IG. And now I take this opportunity to welcome somebody whom I really see as an ideal person, a person whom I met probably almost 9 years back. So when I landed up first in Nigeria, he was the person my boss asked me that I should go to him and talk to him. He is none other than Fidelis Ayebae. I'm sure that when he sees my face, he knows that, yes, this is a man I know very well. And such a humble person, he doesn't need any introduction, though we had to, he's always very simple. And he follows one very interesting strategy. He says that you must be a change you want to see the world to be in. So considering these facts that he has probably one of the most important topics, and I know that the entire attendees today, including the panelists and including myself, we are really concerned about that particular topic, and we know that nobody can justify this topic better. Sir, I take this opportunity in requesting you, please come and share your views.
Thank you, Venkat. Good morning. Start by paying my respects to the elders of the industry, starting with my daddy, Prince Adelusi Adelu, one of the people that affected my considerations in the pharmaceutical industry many years ago. You pardon my language. I'm losing my voice because I have a bad cold and malaria. I don't know when somebody will diagnose it to be COVID, but I'm fine. I also want to, pay my respects to the president of the Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria, Mazi Sam, who in fact inspired the founding of Fidson many years ago, when we heard about the management buyout that happened in Pfizer, I'm glad that today these two elders are still alive, they're strong, and they're leading us, and they're still our leading light. I would also want to thank so very much Anuku, who has given all of us the privilege, to address as best as we can Nigerians and the diaspora as best as we can today. Now, I would, of course, want to give a thought to those that have lost, loved ones, husbands or wives or children, friends in this entire pandemic worldwide. It is a very unexpected, flow of events in the world. But again, times when we expect that anything can happen, and we should prepare. Now, for the industry, there is no gainsaying that we were impacted in a very big way, because as you all know, goods are from India and China, up to the tune of about 90%. We manufacture no APIs, we manufacture no excipients, no raw materials of any kind. It's a country. But ironically, this pandemic has made it easy to discuss pharmaceutical manufacturing in Nigeria. All the shouting at the rooftops that we have done over the years, turned out to be nothing in terms of what government should be thinking about now in terms of the instruction of COVID, which is no country in the world should depend on others for security, for availability of medicines for the treatment of our own people. Nigeria, as it were, has paid a lip service to these over the years. I say we have paid a lip service to it over the years because this same lesson was us by Ebola many years ago. This same thing happened when Ebola came. The lessons were there. We pretended to have learned them. We moved on, and today COVID-19 is with us. Again, I can make a bet on it because men soon forget. Nigeria will move on again without paying attention to building manufacturing capabilities of our industry to be able to provide for the Nigerian public and populace. Now, what the impacts are very simple. Like IG Anuku said, first, and I want to believe that a whole lot of the inputs, whether they are API, whether they are excipients, whether they are chemicals, packaging materials, are mostly manufactured in China. And some of these find their way through India into Nigeria. So as soon as China, shut down, the supply chain, process began to be disrupted. And then came the big announcement by India banning the export of close to 20 products in terms of raw materials and finished products. And of course, all hell was let loose. And God help you if you were a manufacturer that hadn't planned, immediate term, short term, medium term, and long term, right? You will be totally out of raw materials in no time. So we saw disruptions in the manufacturing process. I would put it at about 20% to 25% disruption, in that for some of us that had planned or that are always planning properly, we were able to continue to manufacture. However, because of the shutdown, And because of the uncoordinated manner in which the shutdown was done in some areas, movement of persons and personnel became a big problem. Again, it became an added cost where we had to hire, buses to take our staff to work. By and large, the disruption of the manufacturing industry cannot be compared to the disruptions in the global arena of pharmaceutical industry, whether it is imported, it is distribution, and so on and so forth. Because the manufacturing industry, as it were, it's got buffers, right, that can help him to withstand some of those shocks, because they're basically buffers built in through the supply chain process. And if those processes are properly followed, we shouldn't have any problems. And to be honest with you, to the best of my knowledge and from my vantage position, the shocks that we have cannot be measured above 25%, of what our total would have been pre-COVID era and in the COVID era. But however, going forward, I think the disruptions are now going to, apparent. Because during the COVID period, there was a lockdown. And attendance in hospitals reduced, drastically to about 45 to 60% of the usual attendance, because a lot of people ceased going to the hospitals for the fear of, transmitting, or, by the disease, by accident. So hospitals became a $90 days, going around the world, because, the boats are now stopping in many more countries, to pick up consignments, meant for Nigeria. Now, this is going to continue even post-COVID. And I can see the rest of the year being heavily disrupted when we come to normalcy because of, COVID. Now, one of the saving grace, of course, during the COVID era is the CBN intervention, which addressed very clearly the needs of the industry to an extent. We are aware of the 100 billion naira intervention fund, announced by the, boldly announced by the CBN, which is a very courageous move on their part to sustain industry and industrialization. That had helped in no small measure to ensure that manufacturers have access, to funding at this time. Now, as at the last count, about 6 of our members have accessed this funding, and they actually have the cash. But it is not enough to have, Naira cash on you. It's got to be backed up by the availability of Forex. Forex is the biggest challenge that Nigeria is going to have going forward. The availability of Forex, the ease of accessing it, and the speed of accessing it. Right now, we can see it's very slow. It's not very easy to access it. Now, banks are also having challenges because their correspondents outside Nigeria also withdrew confirmation lines to LCs. So even if you had Forex local, your domiciliary account or wherever it is, you couldn't, transfer such monies because there was a ban on transfer of monies from domiciliary accounts. Now, your bank confirmation lines have been withdrawn simply means that correspondent banks cannot confirm LCs. All of these created all kinds of chaos in the system. Now that we have opened up, or we are opening up slowly, I can foresee a bigger chaos because demand is going to go up. The banking industry is not opening up as quickly as it should in terms of the FX supports, the LC supports, and so on and so forth, to meet the import needs of the pharmaceutical industry. How? The lessons would be for me whether Nigeria and Nigerians and the government of Nigeria will be committed to ensure that Nigeria do not go through this bad dream again whenever there is a pandemic. Paying lip service to the health of our people by guaranteeing the health of every single Nigerian, by doing those things that are necessary to make drugs available, healthcare treatment available, PPEs available, to our, frontline people in the hospitals. These, for me, in a nutshell, what I can encapsulate our experiences to have been during this period. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Ladi. Please, your microphone. Ladi, your microphone.
Thank you so much, sir. That's from the horse's mouth, like the usual English. We know you have seen it all, you have experienced everything, and you have the details with you. And one of the major reasons why we consider you appropriate for that position is looking at the pharma industry, the manufacturing sector, and your experience makes it more easier for us to learn at that level. Really appreciate that, those insightful and cogent points that you have dropped on our table this morning. We'll proceed with the presentation, with the discussion, by having our second panelist on ground, pharmacist Olakunle Oyelana, to discuss with us this morning about the management of food during and the implication during the COVID-19 pandemic in Nigeria. Pharmacist Kunle Oyelana, welcome on board this morning.
Thank you very much, Ladi, and good day to everybody. I think I must start by first paying homage to my elder, or all my elders there. I would, for the sake of time, I will probably just mention two. I must pay homage to Prince Julie, who I had the privilege of meeting as a very, very young pharmacist, then just fresh out of school. While he was, I think that was another period while he was still the Minister of Health. And despite his very busy schedule, I had the opportunity to meet with him and speak with him, and I was really, really deeply inspired. I must also thank Mazi Samohabua, who I met many, many years ago, actually. And as a matter of fact, he is a person that first gave me my first inroad into the pharma industry. Thank you very much, sirs. And again, I must I would like to thank the organizers, NAIP, as they remain a very strategic stakeholder in the shaping of the Nigerian pharma industry. And this is a very timely and well thought out webinar and discussion for all of us to have. Again, I must honor, as it were, the lives that have been lost to this pandemic that we're speaking about, and express my gratitude to all healthcare professionals offering frontline healthcare services during this period. And again, thank pharmacists and everyone else that are working tirelessly to ensure that the supply of much needed medicines during this period is not disrupted. And I think we really haven't seen this much disruption in the supply of medicines, which is excellent, which is a testimony of the good work that is going on. I'm speaking about the financial implications of COVID-19 pandemic and the management of receivables, and probably try to profile some solutions for what the industry and the various stakeholders should focus on going forward. We all know that the COVID-19 pandemic shut down the world as we know it for some time, and this led to significant financial implications across the globe, leading to the bankruptcy of many businesses already, job losses in a lot of countries, even including Nigeria. But the good thing is that a lot of countries also responded by providing palliatives, incentives, and stimulus packages to both citizenry and also businesses within the countries. Nigeria is not an exception. This impact of the pandemic really, like I mentioned, has already led somewhat to a global economic slowdown, probably one of the most serious in history, with some countries as it were already going into recession. The pharma sector, the pharmaceutical industry in reality is not left out of this economic shock. And the thing about this, what makes this kind of economic shock different is that it has impacted both the demand side and the supply side of drugs to an extent, which means that in profiling solutions, in discussing and analyzing this, we need to focus on an end-to-end basis, right from the supply side to the demand side. And I'm glad that the last speaker had already made allusion to the fact that there's some difficulties right on both ends, end to end of the pharma industry. Specifically on the issue of pharmaceutical receivables, it's always been a challenge in the Nigerian pharma landscape. But this challenge really, as most of us probably would know, was further worsened with the pandemic for a number of reasons. And it is worth mentioning, and I really appreciating the very swift reaction of the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria and also the Nigerian government in putting together the pharma industry funding stimulus package, which will go a long way in actually improving liquidity in the system to support drug manufacturing, supply, and the distribution across the country at this very, very critical period. Like we all know, and I think a bit of this has been mentioned or alluded to already briefly, the economic slowdown resulted in a very, very sharp drop in oil prices, which has put very significant pressure on foreign exchange availability in our country. This has also been challenging for the industry, for all industries, especially the pharma industry, as we have to import raw materials and machinery to produce. And if there's a constraint on forex, there of course there'll be a challenge in this importing of the raw materials and the machineries that we produce. And again, on this point, it's also important to commend the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria for committing to prioritize the pharmaceutical industry's request for foreign exchange during this period, so that we can maintain the supply of these essential medicines, especially at a time like this. If we talk further about receivables generally, we know that receivables, as it were, is the oil that lubricates any system, the payment of money for buying and selling. And receivables directly will impact the liquidity and survival of any system. And there's a need to review the payment systems that we're implementing today in the industry to allow faster payment to the pharma industry. The many stakeholders have been debating this, have been working on this. I'm also aware that even the president of the PSN is also working on this. Various stakeholder groups have been discussing, PMGman has been discussing around this, the NAIP team has also been discussing. And as a matter of fact, the NAIP team had earlier proposed a model where there is an intervention fund from the government that will be used to pay outstanding receivables from public hospitals and institutions. And this can be somewhat netted off the hospital revenue, or probably from the TSC account. This recommendation, I believe, also has been discussed even at the level of PMGman. And it's again one of the ways that liquidity can be further improved within the system and ensure the survival, not just the survival, but also the thriving of the industry that we all belong to. In terms of way forward, what do we do going from here? How do we ensure the shocks, both the demand shock and the supply shock that we've had with this pandemic, will not recur? How do we ensure the lessons learned are put to good use so that we don't keep going in cycles over and over again? The challenges of receivables further buttress the need for some key policy thrusts that the government and also all stakeholders should be focused on at this point in time. I will just briefly mention two of these recommendations, in addition to the first one I've mentioned regarding the intervention fund to pay for receivables. The two other recommendations that we should be looking at as an industry, as a government, as various stakeholders, is number one, to enable a very robust contract manufacturing framework within the country. This framework will eliminate the use of import prohibition or restrictions, while also at the same time support local manufacturing partnerships and collaborations within the country. And this is to support this collaboration between people that currently import medicines and, of course, the local manufacturers in Nigeria. And the thing to note here is that if this is implemented properly with good milestones and the roadmap is in place, it will lead to significant local capacity utilization, which is one of the key problems the industry faces at the moment. It will improve technology transfer and, of course, the cheaper cost of manufacturing in Nigeria. And again, this benefit will in turn position our industry, the pharma industry, as a potential foreign exchange earner through exports, especially as we begin to plan for the implementation of the AFCTA. It's important for me to point out that an additional benefit of this collaboration between between importers and manufacturers would be that the global seal of best practices and global standards that this partnership would bring forth. And of course, like I mentioned, it will lower the cost due to improved capacity utilization. One of the things that we all should focus on is that what is the desired outcome for our industry on a broad perspective? What is the thing we want to see 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now after this crisis? And indeed, a desired outcome will be that during a crisis like this, or during a crisis that will occur again, that the Nigerian pharma industry can be called upon, not just in Nigeria really, but globally, to supply much needed medicines that and just leading to a future where the industry moves from a situation where it currently has challenges with receivables to becoming actually a significant earner of foreign exchange inflows into our country with a lot less risk that we face. And the collaboration that has been mentioned between local manufacturers and the multinationals are the input material into pharma industry. Currently, APIs constitute probably over 60% of the import costs for the pharma industry. And virtually all of this is still denominated in foreign exchange. Even with local manufacturing, we still have issues having to actually spend a significant portion of foreign exchange importing APIs and raw materials into the country. So the second recommendation really will be for us at this time to begin to focus on how we can start producing APIs in Nigeria. We can start from very simple excipients, which we're already doing, like pharmaceutical grade starch, for instance. And with the right focus on APIs, with a proper plan and model in place, with correct roadmaps, and with the impending startup of refineries, right, we actually can improve our API manufacturing capabilities in Nigeria. And the pharma industry that we all want, that we all desire, where we're able to move from a situation where the industry battles significantly with a huge chunk of receivables to where the industry becomes a foreign exchange earner, actually is not very far off. And that's the outcome all of us should be using and looking at this time. And this pandemic actually presents an opportunity for everyone to come together with a mindset that this is what we want to achieve. We can collaborate, we can achieve this through partnerships. And again, if these recommendations are put in place and worked on, our industry can become a significant source of foreign exchange and to de-risk the problems of receivables. I think I will pause there and probably take questions later. Thank you.
Thank you, pharmacist. Thank you, pharmacist Olakunle. You have really been great. In fact, for providing us a new roadmap from an economy where we are trying to import more, being an economy which will not only be self-sufficient, but also an economy which will feed the majority of citizenry across the world. It was great, and I'm really sure that with your vision which you have provided, many people will take a leaf out of it and probably will develop over it. Now my next panelist who will be expressing their views is somebody who is definitely known to everybody, but specifically to me. And he is very special to me because he always utters 3 words, which is very, very important for gaining trust. One is authenticity, second one is empathy, and third one is logic. So culmination of 3 is none other than our Santosh. I request Mr. Santosh to please come forward and express his views.
Yeah, thanks, Venkat. Thanks for the kind words of appreciation. I appreciate that. And at the outset, I wish to express my profound gratitude to NAIP and the chairman of NAIP, Pharmacist Ignatius. Thanks for having me here. It's a pleasure. And I also wish to pay my homage to Prince Julie. It's a pleasure, sir, to see you here once again. Just not too long ago when I went to meet him, I realized that we are birthday mates. So it was a pleasure and honor. I never felt so good to be born on that day that you also are born on the same day. So it's a pleasure, sir. And Mazi, it's a pleasure seeing you, and so happy to see you as you are the father of the industry. And a special appreciation to all my co-panelists. It's a great pleasure and honor to be on the same platform with all of you to share my views. I've been asked to share my views on impact of COVID on field force management and how do we manage the productivity of it. So I split my topic, or rather discussion, within that 5 minutes given to me on the 3 things. What is a condition that was pre-COVID, and what are the best practices that some of the companies I have observed doing during this COVID, and what could be the future things that all of us can learn from this pandemic, and also some of the best practices that I have seen happening. So first, pre-COVID, just to give the market conditions, all of us know that Nigeria is an acute disease market. That is, if you really see most of the market research, it indicates the top 4 therapeutic categories that are selling the most or that are consumed the most are antimalarials, antibiotics, pain, and multinutritionals or health supplements. Now, if you really see across the globe, if you scan the global pharmaceutical industry, the developing world, perhaps a little more advanced economies, or both on pharmaceutical, on healthcare and economy, the industries that are doing very well there is cardiology, diabetes, hypertension. These are the disease profiles that are the top selling categories, or a respiratory management. But if you really go to first world, like US or Europe, it's all like biosimilars, monoclonal antibodies, oncology, neuropsychiatry. These are the categories that are selling the most. But in Nigeria, still we are at antimalarial, antibiotic, pain, and vitamins. These are the top categories or top therapeutic categories that are doing well. So that is one factor that we need to see. And also, as many market research again suggest, is that if you really see one of the French company that is doing a lot of market research in the pharmacy level is actually indicated multiple times the role of a real medical prescription in Nigeria is limited only to 10%. That means 10% of pharmaceutical products that are being sold in Nigeria currently are actually driven by the medical prescription. Balance approximately 45% are the pharmacist recommendation or the pharmacy sales boys and sales girls recommendation, and balance 45% are actually self-medication or a repeat purchase. Like I used, say for example, XYZ cough syrup some time back. I got well, so I'm using it again. Or I used XYZ paracetamol, I'm using it again. Or God forbid, if one of the medical rep or a sales rep is actually infected, so he can be potentially a super spreader because he is going to the most vulnerable spots where the infection can. So that was a very big dilemma that most of the organizations were doing. I have observed multinationals were a bit more, were cautious in really pushing the field force into the field because of the global guidelines and pandemic and everything. But we observed, especially we being a distribution house, that because our receivables were very important and we are in a service industry, so it's very essential for us to ensure that we reach the medicines to the thing. But at the same time, we were getting a lot of alternative ways of doing the things. When it comes to the pure scientific dissemination, scientific data dissemination, I was very happy to see many multinationals took a very scientific way of digital platforms and technology driven communication to the healthcare professionals. And there I observed that perhaps some of our indigenous pharma companies were not up to the speed. That's what we observed. Multinationals were doing a lot of webinars, a lot of scientific symposia online, and that's something that was very good to note. And then we also observed that at least in generally everywhere, but also in our organization, like one of the topic headlines is how do we increase the productivity. What we observed is actually the productivity of the sales force during this pandemic, for what I observed, has actually gone up. Like this, so that's a significant population. And as we also know, average age of Nigeria is 28 years. If you really see, that is also one of the reasons, perhaps the pandemic, the way it spread, the way it led to death rate was also that. Because if you really see a country like Italy or some other country where the average age of the country was 48, 49 years. So we have a lot of young population that can adapt to the technology, that can adapt to the digital platforms. And I saw some companies have really adapted themselves to this new way of working. And in as much as all of us hope and pray that this will disappear tomorrow, but at least the common logic does not indicate that this is going to be disappearing when we get up in the morning. At least till the vaccine is there, until the vaccine reaches to all the 7 billion population, we seem to be having some issue, either herd immunity should come up or anything. So what does the future look like? What is the impact of COVID on the field force management? Like I said, digitization and technology seem to be playing a very, very important role in the future, the way we manage the field management. And of course, regulatory framework of the digital perhaps need to be fast tracked. Like I know that sometimes to get approval on the digital media or some media activities, it takes quite a significant time with our regulators. I'm sure that will be done. And I'm sure that we need to, as industry leaders, all of us need to get a fair balance of how do we manage the physical contact with our customers, HCPs or the pharmacists, and online platform. We need to have a fair balance of digital innovation and also the physical, because I also recognize the fact here that Nigeria is still a relationship market. It is that you know the doctor, you know the pharmacist very well. That's what really makes a lot of impact. So we need to really have a balance of these two things. And I'm sure the pharmacists are really looking at aggregation of purchases. They don't want to have 30 suppliers doing. They are looking at if someone can actually aggregate the demand so that their physical contact can be done. I'm sure the group buyings is something that is going to be the order of the day. If some set of pharmacists can form a group and negotiate the best price for themselves and best credit terms, and then do a centralized purchase. And I'm sure companies like us, we are really thinking where to really put call center or apps that we can actually digitally, perhaps being a distribution company, we can avoid physical contact. We don't have to be necessarily present there as much as somebody who is really meeting HCPs and passing the scientific data, and saving the cost wherever possible and invest in technology and digitization. And I also feel that having a clear segregation within the organization of demand generation and demand fulfillment teams is going to be a significant game changer post COVID, is my view. Either we need to build a separate team within which can do the demand generation and demand fulfillment, or perhaps look out somebody who can actually help the company for demand fulfillment while we focus on the demand generation. This could be one of the things. So more or less what I think is, I think future always belongs to, in my personal view, future belongs to companies who embrace technology and who also know how to collaborate. We need not be best in everything we do. There are people out there who are doing some things better than us, and we remain to the core expertise and then give out to somebody who can do that. So if I can just put an analogy, I think with the new new technology and all, instead of just taking AK-47 and spraying the bullets everywhere with a hope that 2-3 will hit. I think we need to use technology and data and then get a .3 mm revolver and directly shoot at one. I think that's going to be the game changer, the way we manage our field force, the way we manage our productivity in the coming times is my view. Thank you so much.
Santosh, thank you so much. That was quite insightful and from a well of experience of an MD. You have really established the fact that pre-COVID, we see the hybrid of supply and demand generation for a typical field force. And going forward post-COVID, there's need to divorce this role, whereby we have a different demand generation team and different fulfillment team. Very, very excellent. Advantage is going to be a very long one in terms of focus. And you have also, industry, we have to show a high level of innovation and high level of collaboration and adapt technology. Thank you very much for that insightful presentation. I would like to bring to the next table Dr. Solomon to give us his insights and view on logistics and stock management post-COVID and the impact of COVID on this particular segment. Welcome, Dr. Solomon, to the platform.
Thank you very much, Ladi. And before I go ahead, I also want to just go ahead and start by paying homage to all the elders in the house. Like previous speakers have said, in growing up as a student, one of the things that a good PANSPIC had was to either have Prince Fidelis Ayebae on the program or Aigbavboa. And if you had one of them as a PANS president or a member of the organizing committee of the PANSPIC, you have made your target for that week. So I want to pay my homage and I want to salute your contributions to the profession. The chairman of PMG Man, Dr. Fidelis, I was in his office sometimes in February at the beginning of this pandemic, and I remember he shared some insights about what he has already told us this morning, what the industry was already facing. This morning, I want to also thank all my colleagues and, of course, IG, who is the president of NAIP, the host body that is putting this together. I want to thank the previous speakers. I think my job is quite easy this morning because in listening to the chairman of PMG Man, Dr. Fidelis, I got a lot of insight about what I'm already thinking of putting to paper. And we have to look at the impact of pandemic on the pharma supply chain, which is, of course, logistic distribution and stock management. And in summary, what I would say is that from all we've heard, all we have seen and witnessed, that the pandemic has hit the nucleus of the global pharma supply chain. And for us as a country, and just like we have in other low, medium, and other income countries, we know that we are at the receiving end of the aftershocks of what I would call the earthquake that has emanated from the epicenter. Of course, the epicenter being China. We have all, of course, known what happens in China, happens all over the world as a matter of aftershock. Product flows from, the global supply chain perspective, for me, I think have been impacted negatively, and then we've been impacted. There's no doubt about that. And we need to understand the fundamentals of supply chain, especially when it comes to our industry. For our industry, just like we have in some other industry, we have three types of flows that we have in the supply chain. We have the product flow, we have the information flow, we have the primary flow of cash coming from the customer when demand fulfillment has been achieved. And in all of these flows, you have the two segments that we are battling with in the supply chain. We have the inbound segment, of course, we have the outbound segment. And then in between the inbound and the outbound segment, you have the interface where the average manufacturer plays, or perhaps if you're an importer, where you play. What we are seeing right now is that at the beginning of the supply chain, which is at the inbound side of it, there is a big earthquake that is sending aftershock waves to all beneficiaries of the global supply chain. And just to underscore what has happened, in responses in terms of what countries have done, in the middle of February this year, the EU banned export of some medical consumables, devices, and PPEs. Of course, later in that same month, the US FDA confirmed that their first case of drug shortage had been experienced. But what they did was to cite an API manufacturer in China as being impacted by the virus outbreak. Like Dr. Fidelis said, and of course, IG Ignatius also mentioned, India, which we know hosts a number of generic drug manufacturers. And at the last count, I think I read that India has not less than 250 WHO certified manufacturers. And for them, it was all about protecting the security of the country in terms of pharmaceutical supply chain. And they went ahead and banned the export of 26. I read very carefully the number that they banned, and I was looking through the list. It had a lot of antibiotics, some antifungal, and of course, paracetamol is on that list. Some APIs and formulations that other industries and countries are very much customers of, including Nigeria. And so we have a big issue in our hand. For us in Nigeria, what are we looking at? We are looking at a likely shortage of products across the pipeline of our supply chain. There's no doubt about that. From the APIs that we have said to other adjuvants, and even the finished product, we are largely import dependent. And so the issue will not be whether we will be impacted negatively along the chain in terms of our stock and product pipeline, but it's all about how much, what is the degree? And somebody has said, it is a matter of whether the impact on your operations or supply chain is either moderate or whether it is severe. And some have said those who recorded about 40 to 50% impact on their supply chain or operations generally are in the catastrophic zone. Dr. Fidelis mentioned something moderate in the region of about 20 to 25. But I can tell you, I know of some companies that have recorded about 45%, in the first quarter in terms of decrease in all KPIs of their performance as a company. And so we have serious challenges in our product shipments. And one of the biggest problems we're going to have, we have been experiencing, is that at the international aviation sector, you have restriction in movement. Even though we've been given exception that talking about the pharma industry because of the essential nature of the product that move along the chain. But the truth of the matter is that if you know what goes on in the cargo transport internationally, you find out that apart from cargo planes, the cargo hold of the passenger planes are actually used for cargo transport. And so the impact in the aviation sector is actually a fallout of what is going on. And that means that in the ability to transport international cargo, you have a big challenge to face. And so for us as a country, the first problem that we have also said is that we have a likely shortage of all of these APIs, all of these intermediate products, finished products coming into the country. Now, first quarter is gone, we're in the second quarter, and I read a report yesterday that said that some people have not recorded, some industries, some manufacturers have not recorded a very significant decrease. But nobody knows when this pandemic and the potential impacts that we have on our sector will end. And so we still have a marathon ahead of us in terms of the journey towards mitigating the impact that we have. And coming back home, we have what I call a lot of inefficiencies in our system. And so if you have a challenge in international transport and you have the port congestion and inefficiency that you have there, it means that we have a double tragedy that we have in our hands. Of course, we know what has happened with the various lockdowns around the world. That is what is actually bringing this problem to the fore and making it a complicated one. Now, I'll ask us, I don't know how many of us have had, I'm sure maybe Dr. Fidelis and Venkat who Santosh who transport products across the country will have experienced in the last few weeks. And he said they were in Onitsha Headbridge, that is the interface between Delta and Onitsha for a long time. Of course, I saw it in the news on the screen. I saw something that looked like about 2 kilometers of vehicles. Of course, they were trying to implement their state-owned restriction of movements. Now, it does not really matter whether you are a pharma carrier or carrier of a pharma product or a non-essential carrier, but you need to get to the point where you are allowed into the state before you can say your demand or your delivery has been fulfilled, has been completed. And so we have both what I call the exogenous, the external problems, and then we have the internal problems. we have what I call the existing distribution challenges that the industry, the pharma industry, has been trying to tackle, and we now have this compounded with what we are faced with. We also have the issue of indigenous support systems and logistics partners not being able to rise up to the challenges. Of course, there's no man, there's no system that will rise up to a challenge when your capacity has been, thoroughly decimated. I had a conversation with a truck company, and for about 5 months now, they've been trying to bring a part that a company has paid for so that their vehicle will be off their workshop. And so if you have outsourced your supply chain distribution in Nigeria, because that is what one practice that many of us have been doing, to a third party, and it comes back to tell you what the impact of this pandemic has had on its operation, you are left with a big problem in your hand. A man has a truck, he has paid for the repair, and then for the past 5 months, the truck has been lying down in their workshop. And when I had a conversation with the workshop manager, he said, well, they are still expecting a part from Europe because it's an import part and it's an issue for them to tackle. And so there is a systemic and what I call interconnected challenge that is arising from what we have in our supply chain. In going forward, because I just want to round up, I hopefully that we'll be able to go back to some of these points. As a country, we need to be intentionally strategic in the focus on our sector. Dr. Fidelis, I want to mention you, I want to refer to you again. And he said we overcame the Ebola crisis, and he hopes that we are not going to follow the same route. The truth of the matter is that may be the fear that all of us have, that we are not going to be as strategic as what has happened in some other countries like US and India. What did India do? Apart from banning the 26 items on that list that we have been referring to, the APIs and intermediate products, they went ahead to support the pharma sector with $181 million, specifically to go ahead and do something about self-sufficiency. And if you look at the history of India, in 1991, they had about 0.3% APIs manufactured in India. But over the last 30 years, they've done what other countries, including the US, in Europe and Africa has done in outsourcing the manufacturing of APIs to China. And so by today, China produces 70% of the APIs that India uses. But I know India, because they have the capacity, give them some time, probably about a few years, they'll be able to go back to manufacturing their APIs locally. Somebody has said we need to do something about manufacturing our APIs locally. And so from the raw material state, from the raw material sourcing, from the product manufacturing and the distribution internally in our country, we have systemic challenges that we need to face. My own advice to us in the sector, the industry player, is that for us, there are some things that the government can do. The government has said we are going to be included or have been included in the intervention fund. $100 billion, and like the PMG man, chairman said, some industry players have accessed that fund. 5%. There is no country that pays lip service to the agri and pharma sector that will do well in human capital, because you're looking at two vital sectors that address the issue of human survival and, of course, security. In the agri sector, that intervention fund has been ongoing for about 4 years. And of course, I have been in the agri sector, livestock feeds briefly, and I know that in two years ago, I got about 2 billion naira in my company at 9%. Now they have crashed the rate to 5%. But the fundamental issue is, if you have the money, even access at that low interest rate, even if you have the forex and there is nothing to buy with it, it gets you back to ground zero and to the position that we started from. How do you source what you have, to manufacture with? The next point I'm going to suggest to us, all the industry players, is that we need to do more of collaboration. I managed MDS Logistics as CEO for 8 years. And one of the things I saw among some of us meaning the industry player, is that even when you have excess capacity, you are protecting your brand in not allowing that capacity to be shared which means at a discounted rate from your third-party service provider. I give you an example. Somebody has an outsourced space that he's paying for 100 square meters of space, maybe accommodating about 2,000 pallets. Throughout the year, we always have an experience that the capacity that they will utilize will be not more than 70%. What happens to the rest 30% that we have used? or like you have this flow of product along the pipeline, most of them emanating from Lagos or from Ogun State, and then down to the north, down to the east. From our record and from the experiences of all of us here, we know that when they come back to Lagos, most of those transporters either come back with little or no cargo in them. How do you get gains from such collaboration? It's a question that we need to ask ourselves and address as an industry. And the last point I will also suggest to us as players in this industry is to take an example from what happens in the telecom sector. I was there briefly in 2008 and 2009, and I remember the issue and the concept of co-location was introduced by that sector. And what does that mean? It means a base station can have infrastructure, the antenna, the mast, and everything, the generator, all of that put together by two telcos, which means you can hang your radio wave on the antenna, another maybe MTN does one, and then Airtel does one. What that means is that the cost of setting up a BTS, that is base transmission station, is drastically reduced by that co-location, collaboration that they are doing. We need to find some areas of commonalities where we can collaborate. I've just given an example of capacity sharing, where one has access to excess capacity and it can share because of the availability of the information. We need to have a platform where some of those capacity can be shared, and then we get the gains from those co-location and collaboration that we have in industry. In summary, I would say that what we are in for, like other speakers have said, is an uncertain time and it's a long period of time. What I would just suggest is that we get back to the basics and we'll put the pressure on. I was listening to Mansi Ohambu some days ago, and he was saying that the government needs to wake up at this time. And more than ever before, ladies and gentlemen, I think that in addition to what we are doing and we do in the sector that we play in, the government needs to pay a very intentional fully. Maybe in another 3 years, 5 years, we'll be producing our APIs, and then our dependency on the sources that we have right now will reduce drastically. That is what India is doing. I'm sure they're going to be self-sufficient in a matter of 1 or 2 years. Nigeria can take an example from those countries. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Thank you very much. It was really great, eye-opener. In fact, you have broken everything into pieces and given in such a way that almost everybody will have a clarity about it. Thanks for bringing the most important issue, that collaboration is very, very important. Thanks for also suggesting that interdependent world is connected now. But while we are looking at the connectivity of the interdependent world, we must also look at our own citizenry to see that how we can create a situation in the country so that our citizenry do not face any problem, while we can also support others. Thank you very much, sir. It was a great insight. Apart from this, now I would like to call one of my, of course, I don't know how to call my friend, my person who gives me great ideas, person who inspires me. The word is not, less. I'm not having words to speak about one of the great guys who is going to come now to present his views, and who has the most important and a special topic, and I'm sure that he will do justice to it. As always said, that I always believe that Lolu Ojo's life itself is a message. So I take this opportunity in inviting pharmacist Lolu Ojo to come and please present his point.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Moderator, for calling me. Thank you very much, the chairman of NAIP, pharmacist Ignacio Sanuku. I want to thank our fathers in the house, the Mentor General of the pharmacy profession, Prince Julius Adelusi Adeloye, the President of PSN, Mercy Sam Ohabua, and other very eminent personalities here present. I think it's a good thing that we are having this webinar because it is an appropriate thing to do. My job is to discuss collective bargaining and government relations. So the very first thing that we should look at really is Nigeria. I will describe Nigeria as a beautiful paradox. And what do I mean by being a beautiful paradox? It has a bevy of contradictory features. A nation that is potentially rich, but yet extremely poor. This is the paradox that I mean. There are questions that I will ask about this country, and I will answer them myself. The very first question is this. The vital statistics in Nigeria talk about the economy, talk about health indices, talk about ease of doing business, and every other thing that you can talk about. In Nigeria, are they favorable? My answer is no. My answer is no, because the vulnerabilities are there already, even before the COVID-19 pandemic came in. In 2019, the GDP growth rate was about 2.3%. And if you compare this to the 2.6% population growth, then you will see that we have actually been living under our population, and that is why we are having most of the problems that we are having. Other economic indices are below par. Time will not allow us, because I only have 5 minutes, to mention all these statistics. But the truth is that they are below par. Mortality rate, either maternal or infant mortality rate, ease of doing business, life expectancy. We talk about dwindling revenue, high cost of government expenditure, and so many things that are not favorable to us. The second question is are things going to get better soon with COVID-19 pandemic? Certainly the answer is no, because as it is right now, we depend so much on oil for our foreign exchange, and today oil business has collapsed. So it is important that everybody, businesses and individuals, we should brace up for tough time ahead. My final question is this: is the situation hopeless? Certainly no, the situation is not hopeless. We have a country with a population of 200 million people. That is a huge potential demand base that we should capitalize on. All we need to do is to get our priority right. We have materials, human and mineral resources, fast arable land, and so many other things that can make our business great. If we are going to talk about pharmaceutical industry and the impact of the COVID-19, then we should look at the global configuration of the pharmaceutical industry. We are talking about an oligopoly that is projected to reach about $1.3 trillion in 2020, with a cumulative annual growth rate of about 9.1%, which was calculated between 2017 and 2030. The major players are in Europe and America. Most of these major players like Pfizer, Roche, Novartis, they have turnover that is more than double the national budget of Nigeria. So it is important that government start looking at the pharmaceutical sector as something that can reflate the economy. You heard the question: is Nigeria part of this business? The answer is yes. Yes, we are part of it, but at an insignificant level. We do not exist in the world pharmaceutical map, because the bulk of our national consumption are imported. So we are just there, we're a consuming nation. Local manufacturing, even the inputs that we use in local manufacturing for the remaining 20% is 100% imported. So we are not there, we are not part of it, and things like that. Before the COVID-19, the pharmaceutical industry has so many challenges, and I will just mention some of them. Each receivable burden, which we are working on right now, multiple taxation, regulatory difficulties. To register product is not easy. To clear product is not easy. We even have debt of quality human resources. So these are the pre-COVID-19 problems that we have. So the final question, let's look at the prognosis. Is it hopeless? No, it is not hopeless. We can build a rosy future even from this COVID-19 standpoint. We can turn the COVID-19 pandemic into a stream of opportunity. Government has already started that with a stimulus package, and I will encourage and urge all of us, to key into that stimulus package from government. Let us know this and work with this notion that Nigeria cannot be ignored by investors worldwide. What are the things that we must do or should do? Number one, we need a very strong and compassionate NAFDAC. When I say strong, I mean a NAFDAC that is well resourced, a NAFDAC that has the resources that it needs to be able to carry out its mandate. The staff must be well trained, and their welfare package must be compared to the best in the world. This is the way to have a very strong NAFDAC. A compassionate NAFDAC will ensure that it becomes the advocate of the industry. Somebody needs to advocate for the industry. We suffer too much. For instance, from custom, what is the right duty to pay on product? Let NAFDAC put the HS code on our registration certificate so that the custom will stop arguing with us, because that is where the corruption starts. So we need a NAFDAC that we advocate for the industry. We must expand local manufacturing. What happened right now has really shown that we cannot continue to depend on other nations to get things for us. Government policy must be favorable. There must be local patronage. And when you patronize the industry, you must pay them. It's not that you will buy drugs from the industry and the next 5-6 years you will not pay. There is no way the industry can grow from there. We need cost optimization. My colleagues, enough. We cannot continue to be local government. Let us come together. Let us do co-promotion. Let us do mergers. Let us do acquisition. Let us make sure that we have companies that can stand on their own rather than these small bits that we have everywhere. NHIS must work. Insurance is working in other countries. Why is it not working in our place? Whatever it is that we need to do, we must do it and make sure that the insurance works. Capacity building. We need the right human resources. Let's do everything possible to ensure that we can train our own people. We started this with NAIP Business Academy. We can still do it again. We can reorganize, we can re-energize, we can make the academy to be good and give us what we want. But more importantly, one thing that we need right now is unity. Unity among all the groups in the industry. Because a unity of purpose will make us stronger. And at this point, I want to call on NAIP, PMG Man, Nairofam, APIN, IPMIN, all pharmacists, and even non-pharmacists who are entrepreneurs in the industry. Let us come together. Let us be able to approach government and negotiate something that is favorable for our industry. Thank you very much, and God bless you all.
No, I think managing time now, because we have been so blessed. Our panelists are with about hours. Zoom has also given us extra time.
Thank you.
We manage the time. Having the panelists to give us 2 minutes remark so that we can wrap up and the call to action.
Yeah. So Dr. Fidelis.
I did make my final remarks, so we can move on to somebody else.
Yeah.
We can't hear you, please.
We can't hear you. We can't hear you.
Kunle, we can't hear you, Kunle.
Yes, I was saying that to thank IG for the great job he's done in putting this together. I think it's been a fantastic event. And it's clear from what everyone has said, right from our fathers, Prince Julian Sam, that we all our interests are co-telling us that for our country, we desire that the country would have drug security. And of course, to follow the words of one of the panelists, that will put Nigeria on the pharmaceutical roadmap for the patients to be sure that we don't have any disruption and we maintain a drug supply security and access to safe, and of course, very efficacious medicine. For the industry in particular, to show that we have a very viable industry. I'm glad that we all see that collaboration is probably one of the best ways to go, and it's good we're all speaking to that. Just to note that indeed for drugs, to ensure drug security, a robust supply chain is a diverse supply chain. And always, as has been said, some will always be locally manufactured, some will be imported. And it's important we also maintain that perspective and to make sure that we have a diversity of supply within the country. Once again, thank you very much for this time. And thanks to NAIP once again. Thank you.
Thank you. Santosh.
Thank you so much. Santosh, can you have the please 2 minutes?
Yeah. So one good thing about COVID is I think science has taken the front seat after a long time in the near future. I mean, we have been business and technology guys. I think in the last two months, we have been reading so much about science, vaccines, antigens, antibodies, virus and all. So it has taken a front seat. That's a good thing. I think the research and development has taken the front seat. And being a pharma industry, I think all of us are also in a way blessed that we are also helping the populace, but at the same time, we are also one of the least impacted industries if you really see as a business. Imagine I have a friend who is selling cars, who is selling luxury goods. I mean, they have not sold, the biggest of the car companies have not sold one car in April. So I wish to buttress what Dr. Fidelis has said. I think this is my appeal to you through this forum is as an industrial pharmacist, please don't go for retrenchment mode. please don't let us not take jobs away, because we need the economy running and we need to be fair to our people. And like I said, Nigeria is a relationship market. We need our colleagues, whether it's a sales staff or anywhere, we need to, and because we being the least impacted industry, we need to really keep the jobs intact. And I always believe that the great companies are built around satisfied customers. And there is no way that you can have satisfied customers without having satisfied employees. So let us take care of our employees. Let us really protect the jobs. And as I mentioned, at the cost of reputation, future belongs to companies who know how to collaborate and who know how to innovate, and technology and digital platforms is the future. Thank you once again for giving me this great opportunity to be part of Elite team. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Santosh. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your time and your insightful contribution today. Can we have Dr. Solomon's remark to
just to thank NAIP for this opportunity and to summarize some of my suggestions to the critical role players in our space. In March, after the pandemic went to a high level in the US, the president promulgated an act, which is Coronavirus AIDS Relief and Economic Security CARES Act. And that was to address the issue of drug security, which of course we all know is quite linked to national security. Of course, we'll be saying something about what India has done. At our level in Nigeria, we still have what I call sectorial and some other agencies responding, not what we want to hear and see from the federal government. I'm sure that as a body, that would be a less line of engagement for us to get the government at the topmost level to tell us how do we address this issue, apart from what we are looking at the private sector. And then for the CEOs in the industry, our suggestion and summary is to say, supply chain function cannot be a tactical function in any organization anymore. If we don't have that in our structure, it's time now for us to elevate the role of that supply chain function to a strategic level, where the CEO has an overview and close observation of what goes on. I'm sure there is no CEO that will be pleased to see at the end of the quarter or the month some surprises in numbers, probably going from your minimal order quantity to your safety stock, where you are not going to be able to meet your demand side of the supply chain. So for us, apart from what we have said about collaboration and what the industry needs to do, we need to find a common ground to see how we can come together and focus on what is now common to us as a big issue in the market space. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Dr. Lolu Ojo.
Yeah, thank you. Thank everybody for the time we have spent here. I think it's very clear to us now that we have to seize the opportunity that is placed before us. Before now, we have done everything possible to get government attention without luck, without result. But now, COVID has helped us to get their attention. For how long are we going to be able to sustain government attention, knowing the kind of policies that we run in the country? And knowing the fact that before now, our contribution to GDP is just about 0.001%. I mean, the Nollywood film industry is even doing much better than we do. So let us use this opportunity. Let us use this time very well. We have talked about collaboration. It is the way to go. It is the way to go. We should optimize our marketing expenses so that we can get the best out of the industry. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Lolu Ojo. Now let us call Pharmacist Chinedu to please give his vote of thanks. Pharmacist Chinedu.
Well, it's been a very wonderful. Yeah, you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you hear me? I can hear you.
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, it's been a very wonderful time, well spent, I want to believe. And I want to seize this opportunity to thank our father, Prince Julius Adewale, for taking our time on a Saturday to be with us. And our very own Master Samuhapua, always there for NAIP, Lord member NAIP. And of course, while listening to Fidelis, Dr. Fidelis Ayebae, spoke with a lot of passion. Of course, you know, he who wears the shoes knows where it pinches him most and everything. And Santosh for giving us very practical insight into what we can do with regards to institutions. I want to say thank you very much. Of course, Dr. Solomon gave us a strong expose, a very wide expose of supply chain. I want to thank you very much for that. And of course, our very own amiable Dr. Lolu Ojo, ever dynamic and ever ready to support NAIP. We thank you very much. We want to thank Olakunle, Oyelana, MDGSK for graciously supporting this webinar. And of course, I want to thank the chairman for giving it for us to have this webinar today. Thank you very much. Mazi has given you a national award, you know, so we thank you very much for, we are part of the award. And of course, I'd like to thank Mr. Beckett. And I don't want to say lost and found, but it's good to see you back again with us. And of course, my own party, like you too, as usual. If you can see, I'm in the gym. I have to consult my Saturday rituals for this webinar today. I want to thank everybody for making the day worthwhile. Thank you. We've heard it again and again. And please, as we all depart, let us have in mind the farmer part. Please, we need your support, we need your collaboration, we need your efforts, and together we will all achieve what we set out for the industry. So once again, thank you very much. And with regards to everybody, with regards to the family, and have a blessed weekend.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Now,
with that, at this conclusion of the webinar, thank you for this opportunity.
I really thank you all for staying this long with us and for giving us all the points. We have a lot of actions to take. But I will drop my last hint by promising Ms. Bully that we are going to go back to that 1974 agreement, and we are going to enlarge that law that every year in Nigeria, we're not going to stop at one pharmaceutical industry again. We have 5 industries every year. We will bridge the gap that has been lost. This is the time for us to act. And this is a time for us to show the fact that we can do it. And with the energy and the discussion and all the points dropped at this meeting today, you can see that we have a lot on our table. There's a need for us to do a lot of collaboration. There's a need for us to communicate. We have to change our attitude. We have to aim at a global level to see that we achieve this thing. We really thank you so much, sir, for those societies. Thank you so much for being the people of the industry and want to really focus. And we also come back to learn at the foot at any point in time, drive this process. This is the time for all to Santosh, kudos for insightful today. And I can assure you the passion and the need for us to do that motivate them at this time. And it's going to go across the need. This particular set of people are motivated and they can produce. I've also given us a lot of opportunity now that we can provide the demand side and the supply chain, which is not easy for everybody. This is a very good time for us to have you around on this board. We'll call on you a lot of Thank you. Hello. You're always in your house. You can't run away. We need to stop and clone those patterns. You have. Thank you. I really thank you for giving us the opportunity to have all of you sitting down with us. And we want to thank Zoom and live till now. IG, we appreciate you. Thanks for giving us our drive the process and make it.
Oh, thank you, Ladi. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. It was
everybody.
Before, of course, we are leaving now, and I would just like to say that COVID might have a lot of minuses, but it has one plus, that it has brought all of us together. And we have battled this many pandemics earlier, and we will battle this also, and we will come victorious. I really thank everybody today for making this program a great success. We had our own challenges because we know that it is the first time we are doing it, but I'm very sure that our relentless efforts and patience has brought probably one of the best webinars which can really ignite many minds. Thank you very much, sirs, for giving us a great path. I really appreciate it. Thanks, IG, for a great work. Well done.
Thank you so much, Mangat.